Harry Potter, the boy who lived.
Have you ever met someone who didn't love Harry Potter with every fiber of their being? If so, you probably called them a muggle and distanced yourself from them, and we don't blame you. After all, no one needs that kind of negativity in their life. Stay tuned to find out why Dumbledore isn't as innocent as he seems to be. Let's jump right into the 10 dark Harry Potter theories that were actually confirmed by J.K. Rowling. A wizard's lifespan. Have you ever wondered why Professor Dumbledore looks like he was about to topple over at any given moment? We sure have, and we weren't alone in doing so. Author J.K. Rowling has often hinted that there are many differences between wizards and muggles. Well, it turns out that their lifespan is one of them. While the average human can live up to 80 years old, the Harry Potter creator revealed that wizards could actually live for about 200 years. At the time of his death, Dumbledore was about 150 years old, so in short, he actually could have lived another 50 years. On another note, it was Lord Voldemort's greatest desire to become immortal. However, he died about 130 years prematurely. If he had simply refrained from putting himself in precarious situations, he might have lived for centuries. Instead, he chose to split his soul apart in case someone managed to take him down. At the time, securing his soul into objects might have made total sense, but his plan sure did fail. Poor Voldy, if he only had made some better life choices.
I could not touch him. It was old magic.
Trouble in Paradise for Ron and Hermione. Many of us were rooting for Ron and Hermione to lock lips during the final Harry Potter movie. However, some people weren't exactly keen about the newfound relationship. When you think about it, Ron and Hermione are the least compatible people in the world. Hermione is highly driven, intelligent, and uptight, whereas Ron is lazy, a bit slow, and as loose as a goose. Knowing this, it's kind of hard to believe that these two characters end up together, and J.K. Rowling agrees. The author has stated that her decision to pair these two characters together had everything to do with personal reasons and not credibility. Sure, they might not have a whirlwind in common, but opposites attract, right? J.K. Rowling also revealed that Ron and Hermione's relationship wouldn't always be filled with gumdrops and lemon squares. In fact, she mentioned that they would meet many issues down the road and even resort to muggle couples counseling to fix them. If you thought that Ron and Hermione were a match made in heaven, we're very sorry to have burst your bubble. Hold tight though, because more uneasy theories are coming your way. Emotional scars. It goes without saying that war is never pretty. Sure, sometimes the good side can prevail, but there is no going back to the way things used to be. For this reason and many others, J.K. Rowling had a great deal of difficulty writing the Battle of Hogwarts. Since it is common for authors to fall in love with their characters, one can only imagine how hard it was for Rowling to kill them off. In fact, the decision was so intense that she still makes it a point to mention these characters on their death anniversary. Well, enough about the ones who were lost, and let's switch to our focus to those who were left behind. Hundreds of students risked their lives for the wizarding world during this epic battle. According to Rowling, most of these students have never been able to shake the fear and sadness they felt that day. These feelings continue to follow these characters to this very moment. In fact, many of these characters named their children after the ones who tragically lost their lives during this battle. In the end, some things are simply too big to get over. So long, Tonks and Remus. There is nothing easy about reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, especially since so many amazing characters get killed off. On May 2nd of every year, Rowling makes it a point to apologize for killing Tonks and Lupin during the Battle of Hogwarts. However, she made it clear that she simply had to. There were many reasons behind her decision, but perhaps the biggest one is that Harry's loved ones had to die. Since people like Ron, Hermione, and a golden few were out of the question, Rowling set her sights on the Lupins. According to the author, she was struggling to choose between killing off Arthur Weasley or Remus Lupin, and she chose the latter. Keeping the Weasleys as whole as possible was an obvious choice, especially since Fred was fated to perish during this wicked battle. The author also commented on how fitting the couple's death would be. In the end, it was sort of like history was repeating itself. In this case, Tonks and Lupin resembled Lily and James Potter respectively. It was also fitting that Harry would get to raise an orphaned child. However, Harry would never treat Teddy Lupin like the Dursleys treated him.
Who'd want to be friends with you?
The Forever Room. The fact that Harry had to grow up without parents is absolutely devastating. However, things could have been worse. Harry's mom and dad gave their life to save their baby boy. When it comes to Neville Longbottom's parents, though, the same can't be said. Neville also had to grow up without parents, but he did have the chance to meet them, just not in the heartwarming way one might think. Alice and Frank Longbottom were good people who managed to withstand being tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange. Their will to keep their secrets hidden cost them their sanity though, and it's something they were never able to recover from. Many of us were hopeful that Neville would one day be able to talk to his mom and dad about the brave acts he committed. Sadly, Neville will never be able to do so. Rowling confirmed that Frank and Alice would always remain the same, and that nothing could ever change them. Since wizards and witches can live for centuries, they are fated to remain at St. Mungo's Hospital of Magical Maladies until the day that they pass over. This is also applicable to anyone who has suffered a memory spell, like our dear old Professor Lockhart. In the end, though, we'd rather he be locked up in the Forever Room instead of Ron, who he tried to obliviate. Dumbledore is gay. Albus Dumbledore is unlike any character in the Harry Potter series. His selfless nature and charismatic ways have made it impossible not to love him. While he may be a prominent figure in the Harry Potter world, there is little to be known about his character. Sure, he's the headmaster at Hogwarts, and he's one of the best wizards in the world, but what about his social life? From what we know, he's never been married before, nor has he had any children of his own. The only thing we do know about him is that he has a brother, and had a sister once upon a time. This information was only spilled during Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, but before that, the man was a total mystery. While Rowling might have described him as a man with a twinkle in his eyes, we never once put two and two together and realized that he was gay. In the end, who a person chooses to love doesn't change anything, but to say that we weren't shocked about this revelation would be a lie. When Rowling confirmed that Dumbledore was in fact gay, some of her fans were outraged. This only seemed to amuse the hilarious author, as a person or character's sexual orientation shouldn't make a difference in someone's life.
I never liked these curtains. Set them on fire in my 4th year. By accident, of course.
Snape is gray. Severus Snape was a man of few words, but when he spoke, you could be sure that nothing good was about to be said. He was crude, rude, and severe. Despite being a teacher, he found little joy in helping his students achieve greatness. Throughout the entire Harry Potter series, many of us grew up to hate and mistrust Snape. His allegiance seemed to rely on what was best for him in the moment. Regardless of how things seemed to be, it was later revealed that Snape was in fact a good guy, and the best double agent we'd ever seen. After killing Dumbledore, Snape was seen as the big bad guy, but in the end, he took no pleasure in murdering his good friend. When Harry finds out the truth about Snape, he is practically moved to tears, so much so that he gives his son his name. It's easy to forget that Snape was a bad guy, considering how much he gave up to save the wizarding world, but as Rowling has put it, Snape is gray. By this she means that he is not black or white, but smack down in the middle. His love for Lily Potter caused him to reconsider his lifestyle, but if it hadn't been for that, he might really have enjoyed being a Death Eater.
Yes, I'm the half-blood prince.
The truth about purebloods. One of the most prestigious titles in the wizarding world is the one of pure blood. Those who hold this title tend to believe that they are better than everyone else, with the exception of the Weasleys, of course. While having magical blood running through your veins is seen as ideal, there are many amazing wizards and witches who are half-blooded or muggle-born. Holding on to a sacred bloodline isn't easy, however, especially since pureblood families are scarce. With this in mind, many pureblood families tend to marry within their circles, which can have disastrous effects. Did you know that Molly Weasley has some black in her family tree? If so, you might have realized that that makes her cousins with the Malfoys. In the end, the truth about the purebloods is that their lineage is being recycled due to not having enough to go around. It has often been said that if wizards did not mate with muggles, the fate of the wizarding world would have taken a hit. Luckily, a wizard's talents can still be passed down onto muggle bloodline.
They attend to people's teeth.
Fascinating. And is that considered a dangerous profession?
High school dropouts. There's a dark truth that many of us Harry Potter fans never considered, and this is that Ron and Harry never actually graduated from Hogwarts. Surely we all knew that Hermione, Ron, and Harry were skipping out on their last year at Hogwarts to save the wizarding world. This seemed out of character for Hermione, who was devoted to her education like no one else. In the end, though, sacrifices had to be made. After the Battle of Hogwarts, Hermione decided to return to school and finish her her last year. This makes her a Hogwarts graduate, unlike her life partner and best friend. Harry and Ron did not see the point in going back to school. They felt like they had already graduated from that period of their life. Rowling confirmed that these two buddies never received a diploma. However, she also stated that they didn't need one to get the jobs they wanted. In the end, it isn't common for dropouts to work at the Ministry of Magic, but exceptions can be made for those who deserve it. Does it bother you that these two heroes never went back for their diploma? Or do you think that they made the right choice? Dumbledore is death. When Rowling finished writing the last Harry Potter book, she knew that her fans would come out with wild theories. What she didn't expect, however, was for one of them to make so much sense. By now, you're all familiar with the tale of three brothers. This story is mentioned throughout the Deathly Hallows plotline. If you aren't, though, allow us to fill you in a bit. When three brothers managed to cheat death, he granted them each a wish. These wishes gave birth to the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Cloak of Invisibility. When the brothers departed, Death silently waited to claim their lives. However, he was unable to claim the last brother's life because he couldn't locate him. The fan theory behind this story goes as follows. Voldemort is the first brother, the one who asked for the most powerful wand of all time. Snape is the second brother, the one who desperately wanted to bring his lover back from the grave. Harry is the last brother, the one who wanted to live a beautiful life free from the fear of death. So where does that leave Dumbledore? That's easy. Dumbledore is actually Death himself, and he waits for Harry to die and greet him like an old friend. Does this make any sense to you? We sure hope so, because it's Rowling approved. Which dark theory was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. The Harry Potter series used to be made for kids, but things got a little darker over the years. And we're not talking about the story, but about the actors too. Make sure you watch this video until the end to know which actor wanted to quit before the end of the series. If you love Harry Potter as much as we do, don't forget to subscribe, and please give this video a big thumbs up. Today, we are showing you 10 dark secrets in Harry Potter Warner Brothers doesn't want you to know. The arrest. Have you ever wondered where did Vincent Crabbe go? He was supposed to stay until the end and die in the last movie, but he suddenly disappeared out of nowhere and was replaced by another character in the movie series. Warner Brothers didn't want us to know what happened, but the news couldn't keep the truth away from us. Jamie Waylett was driving in an Audi when he was pulled over by the police, who thought he was behaving suspiciously. This is when they found 8 bags of weed in his car. The actor and his friend were taken to the police station. Then his house was raided by the police, and this is where they found 10 mature cannabis plants that were valued at around 2,000 euros or more than $2,750. Jamie was arrested and fired from the Harry Potter series, but it looks like he didn't learn his lesson. That's because he was arrested a couple of years later for his part in the London riots in 2012. He received a 2-year sentence for violent disorder and 12 months for handling stolen goods. However, he was eligible for release after 1 year in prison. We haven't heard about him since these events, so we hope that he learned something from this. Being famous and on top of the world looks like a dream come true, but when you fall from that height, things can quickly turn out to be a nightmare. The second arrest. He wasn't the only Harry Potter actor who was arrested and fired from the movie series. However, you might not recognize this one. That's because it's the little man who committed a big crime. Nicholas Reed was a dwarf who appeared in the first Harry Potter movie as a goblin. He also played an Ewok in The Return of the Jedi. However, he was not the kind of person that kids should watch. That's because he was convicted of indecent exposure after a 17-year-old girl told police that he did something really inappropriate under the cover of a juggler's hat. And that young girl was certainly not interested in an adult parody of Harry Potter while she was sitting on a train. That was not the first time he did something weird, because he also clambered into the bed of a stage manager and his girlfriend. He also made random and explicit phone calls to women from a hotel room a few years ago. However, Nicholas Reed was not sentenced to spend some time in jail because the judge thought that the public would not benefit from him receiving a short custodial sentence. This is why the actor was required to be supervised by the probation service and had to undertake a community offender group work program to get rid of his bad habit. If you want to scare teenagers, go play a little monster in a horror movie instead. The addiction. Jamie Waylett loved illegal substances, but another actor was addicted to something a little more legal, but certainly not good at all. That's because Daniel Radcliffe, the actor who played Harry Potter, turned out to be an alcoholic while filming the movie series. It all started when he turned 18 because the pressures of fame made him become dependent on alcohol. And as he had a very addictive personality, it wasn't hard for him to quickly become alcoholic. Even though he never drank on set, the actor admitted that drinking alcohol left him dead behind the eyes. He would black out nearly nearly every time he drank alcohol, and this behavior was becoming really destructive. The actor was not drinking at parties with his friends like any other young man. Daniel Radcliffe said that he was so concerned by his behavior in public that he started drinking alone at home all by himself. Even though the actor never drank on set, he admitted that he went to work still drunk. Most alcoholics are good at hiding their problems, but Daniel was bad. When he watches the movie, he can even point to many scenes where he was just gone. No matter what, we are happy to see that alcohol is not a problem for him anymore. Daniel Radcliffe now says he is not touching any alcohol anymore because he wants to make sure that he won't become alcoholic again. The other addiction. Another little incident happened in 2009, and it involved some illegal substances. That's because some pictures of Daniel Radcliffe partying were shared all over the web. He was laughing because his friends drew a beard on his face, which is surprisingly not very weird for young men like this. But what shocked the world was a picture of Daniel Radcliffe smoking something that really looks like weed. It didn't help when a partygoer overheard the actor saying that he loves weed. The title of the Daily Mirror even read, Harry Pothead, and we have to admit that it was a really good pun. But does that mean that one of our favorite actors isn't only an alcoholic but also is addicted to illegal substances? Actually, many fans just said that they hoped he doesn't end up with psychosis and that smoking with moderation won't kill anyone. After all, he's just an actor, and he should have the right to do whatever he wants with his life. Even though it's not always recommended, weed is becoming legal in more and more countries nowadays. But if you do care, you shouldn't worry about this one this time. The actor categorically denied smoking anything like that. Actually, his spokesman said that Daniel does smoke the occasional roll-up cigarette, but he is not doing anything more than this. Anyway, he won't be the first young man to make a mistake, and the whole world doesn't have to know about it. The biggest fans. However, there are some things that Daniel Radcliffe actually did during a party. We're not saying it's bad, we're not saying it's good, but we would never expect Harry Potter to do this. That's because the actor admitted that he used to get lucky with groupies. He explained that he was drinking, but that doesn't make anything better. However, he has always been very nervous about the groupie thing. He likes to like someone before being intimate with them. That's because he knows that he's going to have to talk to them afterward, even if it only lasts one night. Daniel himself admitted that he was terrible at the whole dating thing. He said that he was not an easy person to love. There are lots of times when he's a good boyfriend, but there are times when he's useless. And he's also a mess around the house. He talks non-stop and gets obsessed with things. But no matter what he likes the most is having a girlfriend. In 2012, he was dating Rosie Coker, a production assistant who worked on the Harry Potter movies. He didn't see her a lot because he was always working, but no matter what, he said that every day seemed to get better when he was with Rosie. And he had someone in his life who made him happier than he ever thought he could be. We think that this makes us happier than being one of his lucky groupies. The affair. Daniel Radcliffe is not the only one who thinks that dating is hard. There is also a love triangle, or actually a hate triangle, on the set of Harry Potter. It involved Emma Thompson, who played Professor Trelawney, Kenneth Branagh, who plays Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, and Helena Bonham Carter, who played Bellatrix Lestrange. Emma and Kenneth had been married for 6 years. Unfortunately, they filed for divorce when the actress learned that her husband was having an affair. The problem was that he was secretly dating Helena. This new relationship lasted for 5 years before they finally split up, and Helena ended up with Tim Burton. That's already a terrible thing to go through. But things got really awkward when the three actors started working on set together. Emma finally spoke out about it for the first time in 2013. She said that it was all blood under the bridge, and added that you can't hold on to anything like that. According to her, it is pointless, and they haven't got the energy for that. Anyway, the two actresses made peace years and years ago, and we are really happy to see that there was actually no problem on set. We can't imagine how hard it would be to work with your ex-husband and the woman that he had been dating. No matter what, the two women seem happier about Kenneth, so we can say that everything happens for a reason. The nudity. So we know who got intimate with who, but Daniel Radcliffe got a little intimate with a lot of people when he worked as an actor. Don't worry, he wasn't drunk with a groupie this time. It was actually part of the performance. He first shocked the world during a play called Equus. People were impressed to see that he looked nothing like Harry Potter, and he really did have potential as an actor. But anyone who saw the play will remember the prolonged scene that involved full frontal nudity. They saw Harry Potter naked. Actually, they aren't even sure that was the guy who played Harry Potter. He looked so different, but Daniel Radcliffe didn't really care about this. He said that it never really was an issue. Actually, he didn't even know why. The actor thinks that it should have been because he is terribly self-conscious. According to him, the emotional nakedness was more daunting, and just to make sure that we won't associate him with Harry Potter again, the actor took off his wizard robe for another role in Kill Your Darlings. You can't get enough of this. He stripped once again in 2017 in the movie Jungle. Come on, Daniel, isn't it getting cold out there? We're pretty sure that Warner Brothers wants to make sure that no kid knows about this. All grown-ups will watch the movies if they want to. The Agent. Just because you keep your clothes on doesn't mean that you are a role model. We are not talking about talent, but about professionalism. You probably remember Devin Murray, who played Seamus Finnegan in the movie franchise. That was probably one of the best roles of his entire career so far, and he made a lot of money with that. Actually, he almost made around $1 million while he was just a kid and wasn't even one of the main characters. But the problem was that he never paid the agent who gave him this role. Usually actors are supposed to give around 15% of the money they make to their agent to thank them for giving them this role, but Devin forgot to do that after a little incident. His mother said that his agent failed to protect the star against bad publicity when people saw pictures of him smoking on set. She claims that her son had gone out drinking, took out girls, and bought cars, because that is what teenage boys do. And she thought that her agent was responsible for the fact that he had a bad reputation. Anyway, the agent sued the actor, and Devin was forced to give him 260,000 euros. We're sorry, Devin, but we think that you deserve this. You wouldn't have gotten this role without your agent, and he deserves money too. The Deaths. You probably already heard that Richard Harris, who played the first Dumbledore, passed away while filming the movie series and was replaced by Michael Gambon. It was not a big surprise because he was actually very old, but he was so young in his heart that we thought he would last forever. We will always remember the day when Alan Rickman, who played Severus Snape, passed away. It was hard enough to see him go in the movie, and we were not ready to say goodbye to him in real life. These were both tragic deaths that made us feel like we have lost some of our childhood friends, but there are actually many actors from Harry Potter who recently died. John Hurt, who played Ollivander in the movie series, passed away in January 2017. He died of pancreatic cancer, just like Alan. There is also Dave Legeno, who played Fenrir Greyback, who passed away in 2014. He was found dead in Death Valley in California after suffering from a heart stroke. And we won't forget about many other actors who left us, like Robert Knox, Rick Mayhall, Alfred Burke, Christopher Whittingham, Timothy Bateson, Terrence Baylor, Peter Cartwright, Derek Dedman, and more. But there are actually other reasons why some actors wanted to leave the Harry Potter world. The Missing Actress. The Harry Potter series would have never been the same if this actress decided to quit acting at that time. Do you know who it was? We can't believe that Emma Watson, who plays Hermione Granger, didn't want to be part of the movie series anymore. And the problem was that she was a little too much like Hermione Granger herself. That's because she wanted to quit this project because education was more important for her. Unfortunately, with such a busy schedule, it was really hard for her to pursue her studies. She fought hard to make sure that she would be able to go to university and sit her A-levels because the schedule for the movies was just crazy. Can you imagine Harry Potter without the one and only Hermione Granger? Emma said that she would have been public enemy #1 if she hadn't continued. She did think about that. This is why the filmmakers decided to do a little something to make sure that she would still be part of the team. They moved the Harry Potter film schedule around her exam dates, and this is how it all worked out. The actress was very grateful for this, and we are even more grateful to see that we had the chance to keep our favorite Hermione. Which of these 10 dark secrets surprised you the most? Don't be shy to answer in the comments section down below. We'd love to hear what you think. We have found 8 mind-blowing Harry Potter theories that will make you rethink everything. Stay tuned to find out the truth about Hermione Granger's parents.
You've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know?
Neville's wand. Neville has 99 problems, and a wand is definitely one of them. When we first met Neville Longbottom in the books, he is described as a totally inept wizard. In fact, his family thought he was a squib for a long time. Then his uncle launched him out of a window, and Neville bounced. Yikes. Neville struggles with a lot of things, like remembering his robes and everything to do with potions. And he is really bad at casting spells. But Neville is amazing at herbology. But after book 5, Neville really starts to improve as a wizard. He gets more confidence and his magical skills improve. In the Deathly Hallows, Neville leads the student resistance at Hogwarts against the evil Carrow twins. He fights bravely at the Battle of Hogwarts, and let's not forget that he's the one that kills Nagini, the final Horcrux. So why the sudden change in Neville? This fan theory suggests that Neville's wand is the reason for most of his problems. This theory goes all the way back to 2004 from an old Imgur post. User Soggy Coo Newt points out that Neville's wand was actually his dad's. That's right, the wand that he uses belonged to the hero Aurora Frank Longbottom. Sure, Neville is insecure, but the wand chooses the wizard, right? This wand chose Frank, not Neville. Of course Neville would have trouble casting with this wand. Neville's wand breaks at the battle at the Department of Mysteries in the Order of the Phoenix. He gets a new wand, presumably from Ollivander's, and this wand chooses Neville. That explains why he's suddenly way better at magic. Mary Poppins is a witch. We are heading into crossover territory now. The Harry Potter world is full of amazing witches and wizards. Have you ever wondered if some of your other favorite characters were actually from the same world? There are a ton of fan theories out there about Mary Poppins, including that she is a Time Lord from the world of Doctor Who. But Reddit user BigCBig suggests that Mary Poppins was actually a witch in the Harry Potter universe, and she wasn't just any witch. She was an important witch who works for the Ministry of Magic. This theory suggests that Mary Poppins was, of course, a Ravenclaw. After Hogwarts, she got a job at the Ministry. She was responsible for investigating Muggle-born witches and wizards, and also introducing them to the world of magic. The evidence is totally there. Her bag definitely has an undetectable extension charm on it, just like Hermione's purse, and she teaches the kids to keep their magic a secret. This theory also states that Bert was a squib, which is why he knew all about magic but couldn't perform it. And then this theory takes a dark turn. Where was Mary Poppins when Harry was growing up? Well, Mary loved Muggles and Muggle-borns. She lived with them all the time after all. It is likely that she was a victim of Voldemort in the First Wizarding War. We know he wanted to get rid of all Muggle-born sympathizers, and Mary Poppins would definitely have been outspoken in her support.
Look, stop. You're going to take someone's eye out.
Weasley Wonka. The twins, Fred and George Weasley, are fan favorites. These two talented wizards are always up for a good time. They cause a lot of trouble, but then they put their skills to good use. They open a successful joke store called Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. There are all sorts of cool products, including candies that can make you sick enough to get out of class. In fact, a lot of their products come in the form of candies. Can you think of another famous magical person who made candy? That's right, Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is totally eccentric. He has a factory in London with weird creatures, the Oompa Loompas. In the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, we learn that Willy Wonka is a rags to riches story. What if George Weasley adopted the persona of Willy Wonka after Fred died at the Battle of Hogwarts? He would be so sad about losing his twin that adopting a new life would feel like a good idea. Willy wears eccentric clothes and a top hat. The figure outside the Weasley store wears a top hat. Oompa Loompas are similar to house elves. George loses an ear in Deathly Hallows. In Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Willy tells Charlie he's a bit deaf in one ear. Willy also gives his store to a muggle named Charlie. George, like his father Arthur, loved muggles. Do you think Willy Wonka is actually George Weasley? We think there is some really compelling evidence in this theory. King Harry. Our final crossover theory requires a bit of knowledge about Arthurian legends. And this is one long detailed theory from Forum Motion. Basically, this theory suggests that Harry is actually King Arthur, rightful king of the Britons. A lot of this has to do with hints from J.K. Rowling that Gryffindor is a house of royalty. The Weasleys mostly have names of actual British kings. Also, in the Harry Potter world, Merlin is a very real person. Harry pulled the sword of Gryffindor from a hat. So did Neville, just like Arthur pulled a magic sword from a stone. In other Arthur stories, the sword lies on the bottom of the lake. Where is the sword of Gryffindor in the Deathly Hallows? That's right, it's on the bottom of a lake. Harry defeats a dragon, which makes him the Pendragon. That's another name for King Arthur. There is also the fact that holly is associated with kings. Harry's wand is made from holly. Also, there are a lot of important cups in Harry Potter. There is the House Cup, the Quidditch Cup, the Quidditch World Cup, the Goblet of Fire, and the Triwizard Cup. King Arthur's best-known story is about the hunt for another important cup, the Holy Grail. Basically, this theory suggests that not only is Harry a direct descendant of King Arthur, but that he is a reincarnated Arthur. The myths always say King Arthur will return when Britain needs him most. Well, Harry Potter does save the world from the worst wizard ever.
Tell me, what exactly is is the function of a rubber duck.
J.K. Skeeter. If all these crossover theories are true, then that means one thing. The world of Harry Potter is real. We've all wished that this world is real for a long time. We're convinced our Hogwarts letters got lost in the mail, and you can't convince us otherwise. So if there really are witches and wizards among us, how do we know so much about them? There are plenty of people out there who think that J.K. Rowling is just a pen name for a very famous witch, Rita Skeeter herself. Both Rita and J.K. are blonde, and they both know a lot about this magical world. As an unregistered animagus, Rita would know all the tiny little details that we see in the books. It's generally accepted that after the Battle of Hogwarts, Rita Skeeter lost her credibility. Some theories suggest that she was even banished from the magical world. Well, how would a writer make money in a new world? They say writers should write what they know. Rita Skeeter, under the name J.K. Rowling, wrote about the boy who lived and marketed it as a fiction to Muggles. Muggles don't believe it's real, so she's not in any real danger of violating the statute of secrecy. Now, we aren't saying that a Muggle wouldn't be smart enough to create such a detailed magical world, but we would much prefer it if Hogwarts and all the other magical places were real. Rita Skeeter has been pretty skilled at writing fiction her whole career, even though she was supposed to be writing facts. Harry and the Dementors. Dementors are one of the creepiest creatures in the Harry Potter books. These dark, faceless creatures literally suck out all of the happiness in your soul. That's pretty much the worst fate ever. In the books, Harry is extra affected by the Dementors. He hears screaming and passes out. Dementors make everyone feel pretty miserable. But why is Harry so affected by their presence? He even passes out when he is way up on his broomstick and the Dementors are on the ground. Supposedly, it's because Harry relives the night his parents fell to Voldemort. But Harry isn't the only wizard to experience horrible tragedy. Why doesn't everyone who has seen awful things react as Harry does? Also, Harry was just over a year old when his parents were killed. There's been a theory going around for years about this. It's not that Harry has a terrible memory when the Dementors are around, it's because he is a Horcrux. The Dementors are drawn to Harry because they can sense that he has an extra soul inside of him. And the memory he relives is actually Voldemort's worst memory. So when the Dementors are around, there are two souls inside of Harry reacting to them. We wonder if Harry had an easier time around Dementors after the Horcrux inside him was defeated.
What did he say, dear?
Diagonally.
I thought he did.
The Sorting Hat Secret. You know how it happens. The first years are taken to Hogwarts by small boats across the Black Lake. They are ushered into the Great Hall, where they see a raggedy old hat sitting on a stool. The hat starts to sing. It spends all year creating a new song about Hogwarts and its founders. Then, one by one, each student is called up to sit on the stool. The Sorting Hat reads their minds and decides which house they belong in. We know Ron doesn't know how the sorting will happen, but he has had 5 siblings go to Hogwarts before him. In fact, most of the students have family members who went to Hogwarts. Why are they all shocked by the Sorting Hat? This plot hole was pointed out by Ben Carlin from the Super Carl and Brothers. How is such a huge secret kept from all these young witches and wizards? The only logical explanation is that the Sorting Hat is under a Fidelius charm. If you remember, in the Order of the Phoenix, this is the charm that requires a secret keeper. Only the secret keeper can reveal the truth to people who don't know it. But once you are in on the secret, you can talk about it to others who know. Number 12, Grimmauld Place is under the Fidelius charm, and Dumbledore is the secret keeper. Harry's childhood home was also under the Fidelius charm. Peter Pettigrew was the secret keeper, and he told Voldemort where it was. So, who is the hat's secret keeper? It's either McGonagall, who leads the sorting ceremony, or it's the hat itself. What happened to the Grangers? One of the saddest moments in the Deathly Hallows is when we learn about Hermione's major sacrifice to save her parents. Hermione knows that Voldemort and the Death Eaters are going after Muggle-borns and their families. She obliviates her parents, removing all memories of their only daughter. She convinces them that there are other people who have always wanted to go to Australia. In the movie Deathly Hallows Part 1, we actually see Hermione cast the charm, but in the books, she just tells Harry what she has done. Tumblr user Stavers thinks that she actually performed the memory charm much sooner. In fact, they think she did it as early early as their 4th year. Hermione knows that Voldemort is gaining power because she's friends with Harry. At the Quidditch World Cup, she sees exactly how Death Eaters treat Muggles. She would be really worried about her parents during this time. She is smart. She knows another war is coming. After her 4th year, she never goes home again. She always spends her summers at the Weasleys. Also, when she has Madame Pomfrey shrink her teeth back to a normal size, she doesn't even worry about what her dentist parents will say. Their buck-toothed child is magically not buck-toothed anymore. That's because her parents are long gone. As just a young teenager, Hermione sacrificed having loving parents to keep them alive. No wonder Hermione was sorted into Gryffindor instead of Ravenclaw. Do you know any epic Harry Potter theories? Let us know in the comments. We hope you don't have to make a trip to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies after these mind-blowing theories.
The boy who lived come to die.
Hogwarts will always be there to welcome you home, and so will these amazing Harry Potter theories. Seriously, you're not ready to hear about Fred and George's secret power. Don't forget to subscribe to The Things and give this video a thumbs up if you love Harry Potter. Now let's check out 10 dark theories about Harry Potter that will change everything. Class size. Let's start with a few theories that aren't known that well, but they actually seem pretty believable. In one of her interviews, J.K. Rowling said there are about 1,000 students at Hogwarts. But have you ever noticed that in the movie as well as in the books, Harry's year is pretty small? The movies show about 18 students in Harry's year, and the books rarely mention anyone else besides the people you already know. It doesn't add up if you think Hogwarts is supposed to have thousands of students. A Tumblr user, Marauders Forever, came up with the most amazing theory ever. And it's kind of sad too. We know Voldemort was at the Reign of Power between 1979 and 1981, which would have been the years when Harry's class would be born. There's a connection between all those facts. If you think about it, when Voldemort was at the Reign of Power, not a lot of people survived. And since he reigned during the time when Harry's class would have been born, this Tumblr user assumes that this is exactly why his class was so small. It's a pretty dark theory, but it definitely would make sense, right? The cursed job. We all know that defense against the dark arts was a cursed job position, but it was never really explained why. We also know that the curse tried to be lifted by Albus Dumbledore himself, but he wasn't able to. A Reddit user has an interesting theory on why that might be the case. The curse on the position started from the moment Dumbledore refused the job to Voldemort, and we've also seen Voldemort hide his diadem Horcrux in the Room of the Requirement. The entrance and the exit of the Room of the Requirement could be placed anywhere, like we've seen it in the last book where the students avoid the Carrows. This Redditor thinks that Voldemort's requirement when hiding the diadem involved the defense against the dark arts position to be cursed. His soul was anchored to one of the most magical parts of the castle and acted as a fuel for the curse. The Redditor also adds that J.K. Rowling actually confirmed that the curse was lifted following Voldemort's passing and the destruction of the diadem. So it's safe to say there's definitely some truth to the fact that Voldemort really did try to make sure no other person could become the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor for too long. The Dursleys are innocent. This is a popular theory, and there actually might be some truth to it. It also ties into Voldemort's Horcruxes, which, as we discovered, changed how we see the story completely. But these theories changed them again. So this popular fan theory states that the Dursleys weren't actually as mean as they seem to be. Let's remember that Petunia was forced to take Harry in once his parents passed away, but since Voldemort made Harry an accidental Horcrux, it means that whoever's nearby him could potentially feel the negative effects Horcruxes have. We saw this work very well in Deathly Hallows, but what if Harry, as a Horcrux, had this effect on the Dursleys? What if they actually behaved this way because of the Horcrux? Of course, this theory shouldn't excuse abuse Harry endured in any way. Daniel Radcliffe actually shared his sentiments on this theory and said that the Dursleys would have been quite a different family without Harry. He did say that he felt like the Dursleys just really hated having Harry around, but that this is a pretty cool theory. Of course, Petunia's bitterness also came from the fact that she never got to be a witch like her sister. So who knows if things would actually change if Harry wasn't a Horcrux. Umbridge's locket. Umbridge is probably one of the most hated characters in the entire Harry Potter series. Harry Potter fans have a theory about the Slytherin's locket, which turned out to be one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. We told you, the entire Harry Potter story really changes once you start theorizing on the creation of the Horcruxes. This theory is similar to the theory about Dursleys, but it's still pretty interesting. We all know that Umbridge was wearing Salazar Slytherin's locket and that she was totally evil when she was. Do you see where we're going with this? So what if the Horcrux had an extra effect on her too? When you combine it with the fact that the Defense Against the Dark Arts position was cursed because of another Horcrux, and the fact that Harry was another one, it can mean that Umbridge was just simply under the power of too many Horcruxes. J.K. Rowling actually responded to these theories and stated that while the Horcruxes would have definitely added to her existing evil demeanor, Umbridge was, in fact, evil on her own too. To be fair, we're kind of relieved because the last thing we want to have is sympathy for Dolores Umbridge. Afterlife. There are a couple of Harry Potter theories out there about the afterlife that actually seem pretty believable. We'll discuss one more later on, but let's check out one right now. One of these theories focuses on Hedwig, everyone's favorite pet owl. A Redditor stated that Hedwig could actually be Lily Potter. This Reddit user states that Hedwig always seemed extremely protective of Harry and knew what was happening at all times. She was far too intelligent and empathetic. The Redditor also states that Hedwig would comfort Harry even during the time he would stay at the Dursleys. The user also theorizes that Lily Potter's Patronus would definitely be a snowy owl. Do you see where we're going with this? Another Redditor also claimed that Hedwig's passing came immediately after Harry's 17th birthday, which would be the age when the protection spell from his childhood would have worn off. Some even state that Hedwig was actually a reverse Horcrux, and when Lily passed, a part of her soul became Hedwig. Although the last theory makes less sense, we can definitely see how Lily's spirit could live on in Hedwig. After all, she was definitely the best pet a person could ask for, wasn't she? Snape's alive. Snape's entire character is a big fan theory that actually came true if you think about it. He definitely had one of the best redemption stories ever. Some fans seem to think that Snape is still alive, and they have a couple of points to share. A Reddit user came up with some pretty impressive evidence to support this theory, and the first one comes from the fact that Snape doesn't appear during the summoning with the Resurrection Stone. Snape would have been very important to Harry, but yet, he didn't appear with the stone, even if Lupin did. And another piece of evidence states that Snape's body was nowhere to be found after the Battle of Hogwarts. All other bodies were laid out on the floor, but Snape's body wasn't there at all. And you'd think a skilled potions professor could save himself from Nagini's fang poison, right? Snape was the master at potions, but he couldn't find an antidote? He was a spy after all. He seemed to have a lot of trust in Nagini because we'd definitely make sure she wouldn't be able to attack us. So could it be that he's still alive after all? Or is that just wishful thinking? Albus Dumbledore and Slytherin. Here's another theory. This one connects Dumbledore to Salazar Slytherin. And while it might be one of the lesser-known theories, it's definitely still interesting. Some of this information comes from Fantastic Beasts, where you can definitely learn some backstories on a few characters. We learn about Isolde Sayre, a Slytherin descendant, who had 2 daughters that understood Parseltongue. And we all know Dumbledore seems to understand Parseltongue perfectly well, and J.K. Rowling even implied that you can only be born with the Parseltongue knowledge. There's no way anyone would be able to just pick up Parseltongue and learn it, and we all know that Ron's attempt was just pure luck. So how is Dumbledore able to understand Parseltongue then, and how does this connect to Salazar Slytherin? In Deathly Hallows, we learn a thing or two about Dumbledore's mother, Kendra, including that she looks like a Native American. This relates to the fact that Isolde's squib daughter Martha actually married a Native American man. The theory states that Kendra is actually related to Martha, as she seems to have Native American features herself, which also means that Dumbledore's related to Isolde Sayre, who's a Slytherin descendant. What do you think? Believable? McGonagall's secret. Okay, this next theory is pretty dark. Actually, it's by far one of the darkest theories we're sharing today, and it will definitely change your perspective on McGonagall. She might be everyone's favorite character, but you might change your mind after you hear this story. If there's one thing Harry Potter fans want more than anything, is that Harry was never left with the Dursleys. They were absolutely terrible. But what's even worse is the fact that McGonagall knew this all along. She even warned Dumbledore and said they were the worst type of muggles. But it seems that she never even wanted to check on Harry after dropping him off. Miss Fig didn't stop the abuse either, but McGonagall had to know what Harry went through since since his first Hogwarts letter was addressed to the cupboard under the stairs. The letters changed based on Harry's location, so McGonagall must have had a clear idea what Harry was going through. And yet she never wanted to intervene or help. Fan theories state that she might not be so innocent after all. And the truth is, she really didn't want to help Harry as much as she looked like she did. So much for being a motherly character. The truth about Crookshanks. This is one of our favorite fan theories. And despite the logical flaw, which we'll mention in a little bit, it does seem the most believable. We've all met Crookshanks, but this furry cat also holds a lot of mystery to it. In fact, there's not a lot that's known about his origin. Fans seem to state that Hermione wasn't the cat's first owner, considering she bought him from a pet shop, and the sales witch said that he's been there for ages and no one wanted him. We also know that the Potters did actually have a cat because Harry found his mother's letter in Deathly Hallows. The letter stated that Harry almost hurt the cat while on his toy broomstick, and he even wondered what happened to the cat. So what if Crookshanks actually belonged to the Potters before Hermione got him? Maybe someone found the cat and the magical menagerie took him in after he was left without his original owners. Seems pretty believable, right? The one big flaw with this theory is that Sirius would have definitely known Crookshanks since he was friends with the Potters. He even said that he had to gain the cat's trust at some point. But who knows, maybe they got Crookshanks after Sirius was sent to Azkaban. Fred and George switching bodies. One thing that's not explored enough in Harry Potter are twins. It seems strange that twins wouldn't have any extra powers or any other magical inklings, right? A theory states that Fred and George were actually interchangeable and could switch bodies whenever they wanted. Molly and Arthur even worried when Fred and George weren't really doing any accidental magic as kids, but we all know that could never be the case. So what if they were really switching bodies all this time and no one even noticed? The theory states that Fred and George learned to act like each other ever since they were kids, which is one of the reasons why they can finish each other's sentences. They just know each other that well. From keeping their grades up to keeping each other awake in class, they were switching bodies to help each other in life. Soon their trick is discovered by Lee and later several other people that just get to know them really well. The theory goes as far to state that this goes on after Fred passes. The two continue to switch bodies until it's George's time to join Fred at the King's Cross station. A theory and a fanfiction. We really need this to happen. Harry Potter might be over, but Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald brought us back to researching Harry Potter theories we might have missed. Stay tuned to hear about an awesome theory about Nagini that has nothing to do with the zoo from the first book. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to The Things. Now let's check out 10 Harry Potter fan theories that changed everything. Trelawney's prediction. Let's start off with the character no one really liked, but she turned out to make quite a few predictions that ended up coming true. Let's face it, we all thought Trelawney was just a con artist until we learned that J.K. Rowling never coincidentally writes something and everything connects. This one is a simple theory, but it should really change your opinion on the divination professor. Do you remember the very first divination class, where Professor Trelawney tries to guess Harry's birth month and gets it wrong, which makes people around chuckle? Well, one Quora writer pointed out that she actually kind of was right now that we know that Harry is a Horcrux. She's saying that Harry was born in midwinter, but we all know that he was born in July. Well, what if she was actually guessing the age of his Horcrux? Or even Voldemort's birthday? We also know that Tom Riddle, aka Voldemort, was born on December 31st, which is still considered midwinter. Trelawney did actually foreshadow Harry being a Horcrux, except no one ever realized it. Knowing that, we have a feeling there are plenty of more hints thrown our way as we reread the book. Speaking of, we bet you never saw this hint coming. The Dursleys. Trelawney's theory kind of connects to this one. So, we all know that Harry is a Horcrux, and because of the last book, we also know that whoever's around a Horcrux becomes miserable and can even start picking fights. A Tumblr user called Graphic Nerdity pointed out an interesting theory that will make you look at the Dursleys in a completely different light. We all know the Dursleys were completely mean and abusive to Harry without any reason whatsoever other than they really hated the Magicful. But what if their behavior relates to the fact that they were living with a Horcrux all this time? Of course, some people might say that this theory might just want to make excuses for Dursley's behavior and blame Harry. But could it be that their mood was also magnified by the fact that Harry was a Horcrux? The theory was never confirmed by J.K. Rowling, and although it might be accidental, it does put things in a weird perspective and definitely changes everything. Well, Everything except for the fact that the Dursleys were just unapologetically mean to Harry for all those years. What do you think of this one? Let us know in the comments. Foreshadowing. This fan theory from a Quora user states that the very first book had a lot of foreshadowing in what's going to happen in the end, and the main link is Firenze the Centaur, who rescued Harry from the very first Voldemort sighting. The Centaurs are mad at Firenze for interfering and say that it's written in the stars, a statement that is also later confirmed by Harry. We also know that in the very final book, when the battle between Harry and Voldemort happened yet again, the Centaurs did nothing to help and finally allowed the stars to do what it was said in the prophecy. They only joined the battle once the news that Harry had lost his life was being spread. The fan theory states that the sentence, "It was written in the stars," foreshadows what was meant to happen between Harry and Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest all along. And we all know that Firenze was banished from the herd for interfering, as well as helping Dumbledore too. Plus, it makes sense why Centaurs took a step back until the prophecy was fulfilled. Another foreshadowing from the first movie occurs when Hagrid talks about you-know-who and his whereabouts. He states that he doesn't believe he's actually gone, because he doesn't think he had enough human left in him. Creevy's parents. Now this is an interesting one. A Reddit user pointed out a possible reason why Colin Creevy's parents are both Muggles. We all know that both Colin and his brother are wizards, which is kind of strange considering they were both Muggles. There's no way two Muggles would be able to give birth to two wizards, right? Well, Luna Lilliputian's theory states that their parents weren't actually Muggles. They were squibs, actually given up by pure-blood families. The user goes on to say that their families put them up for adoption and wiped their children's memories because they were so disappointed in them for not being able to produce magic. So they grew up in a normal Muggle environment, and they never remembered their magic past at all. We also know that Colin's dad loves looking at pictures of Hogwarts, which could mean he's actually trying to touch on a memory that's been erased.
Hallucinations. This is a pretty popular theory, but it really does change the way we see the entire story. It states that Harry simply imagined and hallucinated the entire thing. The theory states that Harry is an abused child, who's also pretty much emotionally neglected. We've seen how the Dursleys treat him and how excited he was every time he got a Christmas present. And remember the moment when Hagrid rescued Harry from the Dursleys? Psychologist states that this is known as fantasy coping. Victims of abuse are known to create alternate realities in order to cope with the abuse they're facing. But this theory gets even more surreal. It states that the abuse can also be seen in the so-called Hogwarts Hospital. Harry's friends usually get treated for far less serious things, but he seems to get broken arms, cracked skulls, and he's constantly in for life-threatening situations. So could it be that Harry has actually subconsciously created this magical world, but he's actually still living in the cupboard under the stairs? It's a scary thought, especially if you think about how many times he ended up in that hospital. Childhood definitely ruined. The other chosen one. So we all know Harry and Neville have a lot of things in common, but one thing that always bugs fans is the unexplainable reason why Neville's broomstick was acting strange during his first flying lesson. The explanation is pretty simple. Neville is clumsy, and he kicked his feet off the ground before Madame Hooch blew the whistle. Well, at least in the books, because he kicks off after the whistle blow in the movies. Because Neville didn't know how to fly a broomstick just yet, it went out of control. But this theory states that it's not just Neville's clumsiness that made the broomstick go crazy. According to some fans, it was Quirrell's fault. We all have seen Quirrell bewitch Harry's broom during Quidditch. But we also know he's read the prophecy, and at that time, it wasn't clear whether Neville or Harry was the chosen one. So what if Quirrell was the one that actually jinxed Neville's broomstick, and then used the exact same trick on Harry? If Quirrell was really responsible for the broomstick accident, Neville was pretty lucky that all he got was a broken wrist. Imagine the story without Neville. Although this theory was never confirmed, it's pretty believable. A werewolf. This theory is all about Draco Malfoy. The entire theory can be found at DracoMalfoyIsAWerewolf.com, and we bet you've already guessed what this theory is about by now. According to some fans, Draco is actually a werewolf. There are plenty of statements that support this theory, including the fact that in the actual books, we never see Draco's dark mark that would indicate he's actually a part of Voldemort's crew. We also know that Fenrir Greyback, a bloodthirsty werewolf, was actually a family friend. We also see Draco looking sickly in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. According to this theory, it's because Fenrir actually bit Draco as a punishment for Lucius Malfoy's repeated failures. And of course, then there's the fact that Narcissa Malfoy, a devoted Voldemort supporter, turned on him at the final moment. The theorists state that this made no sense unless someone she loved was no longer welcome in the Pureblood Order, and her love for Draco was stronger than her loyalty to Voldemort. This theory would definitely change a few things. However, it turned out to be false when Pottermore finally released more backstory about Draco and how he indeed was a Death Eater and not a werewolf. Immortal. Seriously, this theory is pretty impressive. Remember the prophecy where Trelawney states that neither Harry nor Voldemort can live while the other survives. We all just assumed that Harry is just destined to be destroyed by Voldemort, but Imgur user HP Wombat interpreted the prophecy in another way. If either Harry or Voldemort can't really survive at the hand of the other, that means that the one to survive is actually immortal as a result too. So yes, Harry could be immortal, but there's an even darker part to this theory. We always see Harry's parents present in the final series. It's clearly seen that there is an afterlife available for Harry where he'd be reunited with his parents. But if this theory is true, and if Harry is in fact immortal, it means that he actually sacrificed his death for Voldemort's passing, which also means that he will never ever have the opportunity to see his family or any loved ones that have passed in afterlife. And considering he doesn't even have the Elder Wand since he broke it, he's pretty much stuck being alive whether he likes it or not. Now that's a theory that will really ruin your childhood. Harry and Ginny. Harry and Ginny were probably one of the most unusual couples ever, despite the fact that Ginny had a crush on Harry long before he noticed that she's anything more than Ron's sister. That's precisely what this theory is about. As much as people seem to have loved Harry and Ginny, and they did turn out to be the endgame, some fans seem to think that Ginny administered a love potion to Harry. If you think about it, Harry was always indifferent to Ginny, but everything changed in the Half-Blood Prince part of the series. We've seen Romilda Vane use a love potion before, and Merope Gaunt also used this technique to make Tom Riddle fall in love with her. So could it be that this was the reason why Harry suddenly started taking interest in Ginny? If you remember, J.K. Rowling described it as a roaring creature inside of Harry. But isn't it strange how Harry never even noticed Ginny in a romantic way before this? Imagine if Ginny actually did use a love potion to make Harry fall in love with her. This would have definitely turned things around, and we're really not sure we'll ever be ready for this theory to be true. Ron is Dumbledore. One of the weirdest, but probably most common Harry Potter theories out there is the one where Ron is actually a time-traveling Dumbledore. This theory is old, like 2004 old. The theory first came out from the Wizard's chess scene in the very first Harry Potter series, where Ron plays as a knight and the king. That's exactly what Dumbledore is in the greater Wizarding War to come. According to the theory, Ron and Dumbledore share a lot of similarities, including one where Dumbledore's Christmas wish is a pair of warm socks. And of course, let's not forget about the fact that Dumbledore left Ron with a really unexpected item after his passing. This theory is actually pretty long, but if you haven't yet experienced it, it's a must-read for any Harry Potter fanatic. What do you think? Could Dumbledore really be Ron? This theory was actually debunked by J.K. Rowling herself, but she did admit that they open exhilarating new vistas of possibility. But that possibility quickly closes when you realize that this would mean Dumbledore actually liked Hermione. Nope, nope, nope. The Muggles won. One of perhaps the most unknown but very interesting and extremely dark theories out there came from Reddit. Redditor Celeritas365 shared an interesting perspective on the wizarding world and said that the wizards already had a war with the Muggles, and unfortunately, the Muggles won. The Reddit user argues the statement with several points. In the 4th book, we learn that the Minister of Magic was required to tell the Prime Minister that he was bringing a dragon into the country. ministry. According to the Redditor, it seems weird that this rule would exist in the first place, as wizards do a lot of things in front of the Muggles without involving the Prime Minister. Furthermore, the Redditor also argues that there seems to be a strange lack of powerful wizards, apart from Dumbledore, of course. Could it be that the ministry strictly regulates every spell and every wizard, and they ignore quite an advanced Muggle technology that could actually help them? The theory states that near the end of the Middle Age, the Muggle trials were more successful than the wizards were led to believe, and that the Ministry of Magic was created to keep the wizards in check after the war. The government manipulates the wizards to think that they're the ones in power, when really they still have to coexist in a much larger world.
Because I have something worth living for.